everybody. This is Katie Frekhtman, a New York City personal injury trial attorney, and today we're talking about bus accidents. There was a question from someone in a comment recently, and they asked, can you please do a video about bus accidents? And I said, okay, that's a good idea. I think we've done some before, but let's talk about bus accidents. How are bus crashes different from your typical car crash? Well, one of the ways bus crashes are different is that the plaintiff's attorney representing the injured individual can request information, discovery from the bus company, as well as possibly from public entities. So one of the ways it's different is that the plaintiff's attorney can get video, and you want to get video of the bus. And the video is very helpful because it will come from different angles. For example, if it's a New York City Transit Authority bus, oftentimes you can get video inside the bus. You can get video of the side of the bus. You can get video of, the driver's point of view, like a bird's eye view looking out into the windshield. So that's very, very helpful. So you want to definitely get that. Another thing you can do with bus cases is you can get what's known as the EDR data, electronic data recorder. So if there's a conflicting testimony or conflicting evidence about how the crash occurred, that EDR data can be very, very helpful, right? The other thing you can do is you can obtain like fitness for duty reports or qualification files of the driver to see if they were ready for duty, if there were any impairments. There's something known as a paddle report that they use. It's known as a paddle because back in the old days in the 1800s, they used to keep it on a piece of wood. And what it basically does is it tells the driver the route and what stop he has to be at, which time he or she has to be at. So it's known as a paddle, but that's also very helpful to get. So we actually have a template of information that we obtain in bus cases. Another very important thing that you can do in bus cases is you could search the public records and you can do a FOIL, a Freedom of Information Law request, especially if the bus is affiliated somehow with a public entity. For example, if it's a New York City Transit bus, well, then you can obtain FOIL from Transit. If it's a school bus, you could obtain FOIL from the school district. And a lot of the times it's much better because when you try to get discovery from a defense lawyer hired by the insurance company, that defense lawyer is going to filter everything and say, you know what, you're not entitled to it, objection, I'm not giving you anything. Whereas when you do a FOIL request, it's more like a public information and you're just dealing with like an administrator or a secretary and they just provide everything to you. And then that can be very, very helpful. Like one of the ways it could be very helpful is if you obtain the operations manual or the policies and procedures. And for the most part, like buses will have an operations manual, and that's very, very helpful because the operations manual will tell the bus driver and the busing company what they can do and what they cannot do. And so that's very helpful. That's like one of the most helpful things that you can obtain because oftentimes the busing company will just say, you know what, we didn't do anything wrong. We couldn't see the plaintiff. For example, if a bus hits a pedestrian, like there was one case I remember listening to a CLE, a continuing legal education about buses. And there was this one case where a car was double parked. The lady was going to, drop something off, but the bus wanted to pull into the bus stop. So the bus driver like honks, and I think he actually yelled to the lady, hey, move your car. So she is going to move the car. She goes around, and then the bus driver just proceeds into the bus stop and he pins her between the right side of the bus and her car and causes like horrific injuries, very, very serious injuries. And then the police report says, you know what? Well, the bus driver couldn't see this woman. There's no way. And he testified in his deposition, I couldn't see her. But what the plaintiff's attorney did is they obtained the video from multiple angles and it showed that she's right there. They circled her in red. She's right there. How can you not see her? You're far away. And furthermore, they got the operations manual as to what a reasonable bus driver is supposed to do. And that operations manual said that you have to maintain 3 to 4 feet of clearance on the right side when you're approaching a parked car. So that's irregardless of whether there's a person or not, right? That's just the operations manual. And then the bus driver didn't even know that that was the rule. And so they totally flipped the case. Like the case was supposed to be a nuisance value case because it was completely the plaintiff's fault from the insurance company's perspective. It was supposed to be settled for like $5,000 or whatever. And because they had all this evidence now with the operations manual and the video, it actually went for 7 figures. It was a multi-million-dollar case. So that's really a good thing to do. It's very, very important. Yeah, so I mean, the bus driver manual, that's very, very important. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was some of the examples of bus cases that we've handled. So for example, one of the types of bus cases that we've handled was a case where a lady was getting off a bus and the bus was still stopped. And then she pretty much had already cleared the bus because she was crossing the street. But then suddenly the bus takes off and the front of the bus passes her, no problem. But these buses, when they turn or where they pull out of a parking spot, there's something known as like a sweep, right? They almost like a sweeper. They sweep the crosswalk. They sweep the street. And that bus swept her with the back of the bus and she got hit and she suffered a terrible injury. She suffered, I believe it was an open reduction internal fixation of her leg. And so that case, the same thing. They were saying she's completely at fault. What was she doing there? The bus couldn't see her. But we proved that the bus should have saw her. They should have used the guidelines in the operations manual. And we ended up settling that case for close to $500,000. Another case was a woman who was a passenger on a bus when there was an accident between the bus and the truck. And so there we sued all the parties and there was a spinal fusion in that case, and that case settled for close to $2 million. And then there was another case where a woman was simply rear-ended by a bus and the bus just didn't see what there is to be seen. It happened in Manhattan. It was a low-speed impact, but the lady had a bad shoulder injury and she ended up needing shoulder surgery. And so that case settled for $550,000. So all of the cases are a little bit different depending on how the incident happened. And some of the common cases that you'll see with bus accidents is just a bus crash, right? You're a passenger on a bus, the bus crashes. You could be a pedestrian getting hit by the bus. You could be in another vehicle getting hit by a bus. Now, of course, there are a lot of different types of buses. You've got private bus companies, right? Like the Peter Pan buses. You have school buses, you have transit buses or any kind of city buses. Then of course you have different types of transportation companies that use large vehicles that can be equated to buses. But a bus under New York law is a common carrier. They get paid to transport a group of people to the public. That's how they make their money. So there's a specific jury instruction for common carriers. And what it basically says is that the bus company has to use reasonable care in light of the dangers and risks known to them. So it's pretty much the same standard that would be applicable to most cases. Reasonable care, also known as ordinary care, that they have to just be careful and they have to, be careful with all time. And then there's specific jury charges depending on the case, because sometimes you have a case where you're a passenger on the bus and the bus just stops short or it jerks and then you fall down, right? That could be one type of case. Another case could be that the bus stops in a dangerous place and says, okay, this is a bus stop. Somebody's getting off and they step into a hole. Well, that could be the bus's fault as well. Sometimes there's something to do with the equipment of a bus, right? If somebody, for example, gets injured because the bus has something like a strap that you're holding and it's broken, it's defective, or any type of equipment issue, sometimes slip and falls on the bus because there's like wetness. Other times there are cases where the bus company has a duty to protect you. For example, if you're being harassed by somebody on the bus and the bus driver sees it happening and they have a chance to intervene, like they could stop, they could call the police, but they don't, and then you get assaulted, that could be a case against the bus company. So there's a lot of different types of cases with buses. But those are the examples that just come to mind in the last few years of cases that we've handled. So I hope this has been helpful. Let us know what other questions you have about buses. But I think the big difference is to get this discovery, both from the defendants, you have to serve a request for documents and you have to do depositions of the bus driver, perhaps of somebody from the busing company, especially if it's a private company. Because remember, with personal injury cases, what you want to really show is that the company, the corporation, knew and still let the danger persist, right? That the company knew. Because if you just show the bus driver made a mistake, the jurors might be willing to provide liability, but it's much weaker than if you show a system, right? Like a system failure, a systemic disregard of safety over and over again, that they just don't care. So that's always much stronger for the plaintiff. So it's always good to depose the head of the bus company, a corporate person, somebody who knows about the systems, and to show how they violated their own procedures, right, by using the bus manual. That's very, very powerful. So I think that's the main way that these busing cases are different. So again, I hope this has been helpful. Let us know what questions you have. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Drop us a comment, drop us a question. We're here for you. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.